This is Derek with T.C.A.T Board Gaming, and I'm here with Ben. We just finished a game of The Witcher, The Old World by Go On Board. This was my third playthrough and Ben's first. What are your initial reactions?
So you had told me you'd played it a couple times before, and had you finished the games before?
No, we had played 2 times before. Once was just with the base game, trying to get to the 4 trophies. This time, the second time, we added the legendary monster. Both times we ended up running out of time to get through it. This is our actually first full playthrough where we actually had a winner, I guess.
and yes, I won, so I'm very happy about that. So what I was going to ask is it took us about, what would we say, 3.5 hours?
Yes, I believe that's where it was.
And the other times you played it, the first time learning game, how long was it?
Yeah, we had about 3 hours with 5 players, which is a little higher than what's recommended for your first playthrough.
Got it.
And we got about halfway through. We had people with 2 of the 4 points needed to win. And then the second time, we added in more expansions, and we got to about probably about 3/4 of the way through.
Okay.
With the added expansion, with the version we played today, we actually pulled back one of the expansions just to help keep the board tighter and allow it to just try to have more movement, more player interaction.
And so the point of the game is one of 2 things. Like in the game we played today, it was like whoever defeats the legendary monster. Is that what it is?
Yep.
And in the base game, it's whoever gets to 4 trophies.
Yes.
And you get trophies either by defeating other Witchers, defeating monsters, or meditating.
Yep. So meditating is where you are progressing your abilities up to a 5th level, and then spending time to get a trophy. Stepping back, I guess, kind of explaining the game a little bit.
Yep.
At its core, The Witcher Old World is a deck builder.
Yep.
It has elements of battling where you're fighting monsters, you're fighting other Witchers. So there is that competitive aspect there. It has progression, a little RPG sort of action where you are increasing different abilities that give you better armor or better, drawing more cards when you're fighting. But at its core, it's a deck builder.
Yeah, no, I like that aspect of it. It's early on, when I was sitting down to play, and I think so. Sean's played before, so it was a 4-player game. But had Lawrence ever played before?
No, you and Lawrence are both the first time through it.
So Lawrence and I played as Witchers. You and Sean played as mages.
Yep.
And so the mechanisms behind those characters was different. And it was kind of cool watching the way you guys managed your decks and your actions versus us, because as Witchers, we were really damage dealers, and I was more of a defensive person. Mm-hmm. I couldn't really tell what Lawrence's character was, but it was just interesting watching how he played versus me and how he built his deck.
Yeah, with the difference between your 2 Witchers was yours was very much a defensive, being School of the Bear. Lawrence was a School of the Eagle, I think it is, and his specialty was being able to pull cards that he had already used from his life pool back into his hand, allowing him to keep playing even after when otherwise he would have died.
And your mage had a similar ability. What was the difference in your mage versus maybe Sean's mage?
Cannot remember exactly what Sean's specialty was. Mine was allowing me to gain energy. With mages, it's instead of just trying to do damage, what we're trying to do is we need to kind of manage our energy levels to do combos. Yeah. And my ability was to be able to increase my energy level to be able to, once it fight.
Yeah, it seemed like you never had to worry about energy, and I really never had to worry much about defense. So our characters were similar in that regards, because energy is kind of akin to defense for the Witchers.
Yep.
So anyway, seeing that difference in how they played, again, my character ended up winning, but there's an asterisk there because we broke the game initially. I shouldn't have been able to fight you when I did, and I got a trophy for that.
Yep.
We let it slide because it was the first turn of the game. But, what I would say is that there's a lot going on, and so, but after, I would say, my second turn, it was pretty easy to understand what to know to do. And so I think that's one thing that I think learning the game, like, it'd have been nice to do that. Let's all do 1 or 2 turns and then play it. The downside to that is obviously, it just adds to the length of time. 3.5 hours, though, I would say it flew by. And with the way the stories go in the game, how depending on if you go and you adventure, you're reading a story, and the player behind you can read that story while the next player can kind of take and advance their turn. It did flow. It flowed really nice. I didn't feel like a lot of downtime between my turns.
Yeah, what really bogs it down is the fighting.
Yeah.
And that's mainly because there's only one fighting deck for the monsters. If you're going to fight 2 Witchers, that's a different story.
Yep.
But when you fight the monsters, then you have to kind of wait if you're going to fight a monster also. So that's kind of nice. As you get through the first phase is you adventuring out, looking, increasing stats, getting monster trails, stuff like that. And then the second phase is you fighting the monsters, fighting Witchers, or exploring the city, exploring the country, which is kind of nice. It's a nice add-in because you don't feel like your turn's wasted. If you didn't have enough cards to maybe start a fight, you still have something to do. You're getting a quest. You're getting abilities to increase stats and things like that.
Yeah.
And then while that's kind of happening, going into phase 3, which is your card buy for the next round, that's really when the next person can start and roll through.
Yeah. And so, it's like, I wouldn't say 3 games in one, but, well, yeah, it is actually, because, there's a map with all these different locations. So, 20 locations out on the board. And, you have to play your cards to move to the next location. Yep. And depending on what's at that location, you get an upgrade, or maybe you can gamble to earn some more coin, or you can choose to just stop and go on an adventure. If there's a monster there, you can choose to fight the monster. There's tokens that get put out through various effects, and you can try and plan your path so you pick up these tokens along the way, which help you out in different ways. So that adventuring phase is different than that next phase, which is, again, if you choose to adventure, you draw a card and you kind of get a multiple choice question on what you want to do, and you can get some money or maybe a side quest. Mm-hmm. So that's very cool from that adventuring phase. But obviously the fighting phase is really cool. Yep. Where you're fighting against either, again, a Witchers. I wouldn't say that was very cool. I mean, it was fun to see how it worked, but I don't know that I would go out and actively do that. But fighting against the monsters is just really cool because each monster has so many different things that they can do, and only so much health. And you're thinking about your deck of cards and what you've built and bought, and do I think that I can get through my deck and kill this monster before he gets through my deck and kills me?
Yep. And just for the purposes people know, is your deck that you've built when you're fighting is your life pool, as well as how you're doing combos. So as you have a kind of give-take relationship with, I can do this combo of 4 cards, but then I'm not having that for life once the monster attacks on its turn. And the monster has its own pool of cards, its own life pool, it's a deck that it's also doing combat out of, which is also you're taking damage out of as you're doing damage. So it's the same concept. It feels good. It's a lot of give and take, I guess.
Yeah, no, and what's really cool too is the interesting element of, so whoever the previous player is supposed to run the monster, and they also have a choice. So it's like they're not just passively flipping cards. They're saying, okay, do I charge you or do I bite you? And then depending on what's selected, that's what the monster does. And it can be damage, it can be special effects or whatever. But again, it keeps them engaged in the fight, which I like. Mm-hmm. And then also, obviously, if special attacks are done or whatever, there's a list of things that the monster can do as well. So out of all the monsters I saw out there, I was actually actively paying attention when other people were fighting those monsters, because I'm like, that's cool. Like there was one that Sean was fighting that kept healing itself. Mm-hmm. And of course it ended up killing him, and I'm like, well, let me see if I can go kill it. And of course I did, which didn't make Sean happy, but it was just funny seeing that these monsters that they can be versatile in how they attack, and it's just not rote, we're fighting another goblin, and so we just got to do this 5 damage or whatever. It's each one brought its own little epic thing. And so I've not read the books like you have, but I've watched the show, and it was cool because some of they're thematically, they kind of match. If it's a specter and it's going to heal itself because it's kind of a spirit ghost, mm-hmm. It was actually I think the term was life stealing, and so it's stealing life away to get its cards back, and it's okay, that makes sense, versus the big Cyclops that just clubs things out of his way, thematically the monsters made sense, and it just was really cool watching each of the fights go against them. So I like that part of it.
Yep. And the nice thing is the monsters kind of, not each monster levels up, but the monsters you fight level up kind of as you are going. So the game starts with having, depending on the number of players, but we start with 3 level 1 monsters, which are somewhere between 10 to 12-ish health. And then once you kill a level 1 monster, then you spawn a level 2 monster. Once you kill a level 2 monster, you spawn a level 3. Level 3s, you're just getting up into like the 18-ish health. And they have a lot harder, abilities and things like that.
Yeah, I saw the level 3 that popped, and I was like, I'm not even going near him, because it was basically like if you play a defensive card, which my guy had a lot of, he automatically does 2 damage on his next hit, like a plus 2 damage, and you could like never heal more than or add more than 1 shield during defense, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not fighting that guy. Like, my guy is not made to fight him. But I avoided him, but I did fight some level 2s. I don't think I ever fought a level 1 monster, but I fought level 2s, got a couple of trophies off of those. Fought you again. I shouldn't have been able to first turn, and got a trophy off of that. And then went and fought the big bad. And honestly, like, it came down to, like, I had 3 cards left, and then because of his ability, I had to randomly pick one to start with, and luckily, because of my other abilities that I had earned, I was able to do the damage. But had I not have had that, it was over. Like, I was getting wiped out. And then he would have just reset his health to fight you next, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so I think you and me, and I think even Lawrence, thought we had a fighting chance of beating him. I think if I didn't beat him, you were within 1 space, so you were going to go and beat him. So I think that's cool. Like, it ramped. The point is, in saying that, is like, I don't think anybody ran away with it. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like,
And
I got really lucky, and then you were right there to probably knock him out if I didn't.
And with the legendary monsters, whoever beats the legendary monster wins.
Yeah.
They could have 0 trophies. They could have 4 trophies, because you kind of max out at 4. With that, that happening, is the way they kind of balance that is however many trophies you have gives you the legendary monster, a certain amount of protection, we'll say. So if you were to do 4 damage and you had 3 trophies, he would still get 1 protection. So you're only really doing 3 damage to him. Now, you could try to go just build out a deck and go and kill the monster right away, but he's going to be blocking 4 of your damage every turn.
Yep.
So if you feel like as a long shot it's there, you could go try, and really there's no real downside to trying. You get beat up, you'll end up having to get less cards to buy with your your third phase. But it's it's an attempt, and especially if you feel like someone is going to win next round, you're like, well, I might as well go try.
That's true. That's another good point, and I talked about this in the other game that I played tonight. But basically, what I don't like is like when you're punished for trying. And in this game, going and fighting, yeah, you want to win, but when you don't win, it's not that bad. Like you don't. There are some cards and enemy abilities that do permanently like move your stats down and backwards or whatever, which ruins progress that you may have made. But that's very rare that happens. For the most part, like you said, if you lose, you just draw less cards and you still get a card out of like the buy portion, which we haven't even talked about, which is the deck building portion. That's also, I would say, that was daunting on my first 2 turns of like, I don't know what to buy until 1 card popped up on my 3rd turn in the row, and I just was watching it because I think it popped up like after your turn, and so I had to wait for Lawrence and Sean to go, and I was watching it hoping it stayed there. But yeah, there was 1 card that I saw, and I could then see how my cards and deck would combo. Like after I saw that card, and before that I was like, I don't know how this works. But the other truth to that is I hadn't gone through my whole deck yet. So by the 3rd turn, I'd gone through my deck and I'd had these cards in there and I'd done a fight. But the buying of the cards is really cool because they're pretty cheap. Sometimes you have to kill a card to get one, but that's actually good because you're thinning your deck from cards you don't need to get better cards. So the deck building aspect was really cool. Like again, I felt confident in my deck. Again, I went and beat the guy, but I also was like, this is by the skin of my teeth. I felt that too going in. So
yeah, and kind of the one nice mechanic of it is, so at the beginning of phase 3, you draw 3 cards from your life pool from your deck. unless you have some modifiers that let you draw more or less. But you have those 3 cards. And then from the amount of available cards there's modifiers from either +1 to -1. And that's how many they have. Each card has a value, whether it's from 0 to 2.
Yep.
So if you want to buy a 0 card, then you don't have to spend anything. You just get it. It goes into your hand.
Yep.
If you want to buy a 2 card, you have to discard 2 of your cards. Then you get it and you get it into your hand. Well, then when it comes back around to your turn, how many cards in your hand, that's how many actions you have for that turn.
Yep.
So having 3 cards and you're kind of balancing that, saying, well, I like that combo ability that it has, but it has a free card for me. I can just pull it into my hand, and then I have those actions. These cards also, besides doing combos for combat, you're also using them to move. You have 3 types of terrain. You have mountains, like forests, and like water, rivers, like something like that. And each location on the map has an image of one of those symbols on it. So if you're in a spot, you say, I want to go to this mountain range, I have to discard a card out of my hand with a mountain. I get to go there, do the location action. But then if I was going to have to fight, now I only have 2 cards to fight with. So there's a lot of management that way, to kind of keeping an eye on what you want to do. Like if I want to go fight next turn, maybe I do just get a 0 card, so I have that extra action to move where I need to fight and still have a full hand. Or if I'm going, well, I'm not going to fight anything, I'm going to maybe spend a little bit more to get a better card, and just you spend it all the cards then eventually on movement and doing location actions to kind of get better.
Yeah, no, it was cool. Also, as you get trophies, you level up and you get to trash cards from your hand, so you get to thin your deck out. And so that rewards getting the trophies as well, because you can make your deck be what you want it to be. But you're right, like you can get those 0 cards and fatten your deck up too, but obviously the 0 cards typically aren't that powerful. You know, it's usually the ones that cost something, either trash a card or pay 2 to get, and then you're waiting, because like the way it works is that after you buy a card, you kind of shift everything down towards the lower end. So at the very end of the row is a -1. So it's like, okay, I want that 2 card, but I don't want to get rid of 2 cards to get it. So I'll wait till it gets, all the way to the end, and maybe it'll only cost me 1 if it sticks around that long.
Yeah,
that's the risk reward. But yeah, it was cool. I like that aspect. I don't know that I did a good enough job of paying too much attention until later. It was early on, like I was just like, oh, that's a 0 card, I'm going to buy it. I think even one time I bought a 1 card because I thought, oh, a 1 card's probably better, but I don't know that it actually was a better card to have at the end of my deck. Yep. But I never played it before, so who knows. Overall, it was good. About 3.5 hours. Didn't feel like 3.5 hours. Nope. And I know your 3rd time playing, but I definitely would play this game again. So.
Oh yeah, and it is my game, so I am biased. Just put that out there. It has a great table presence. It's a nice big map, and then there's probably about, I don't know, maybe 30-ish minis.
Yeah, and the question I had is so you had a neoprene mat for the map.
Yep.
And so it was a map plus the monster area and card area plus the buying area as well. Is the neoprene mat part of it, or is that part of like a Kickstarter?
That was a Kickstarter. Okay. So they have a cardboard mat that has the map.
Yep.
And then they have the phase 2 area for the monsters, and then they have just the Witchers cards.
Got it.
So the mage cards would get added as a cardboard, and then Skellig, which we didn't play, would be added as another cardboard.
I mean, yeah, like you said, table presence was awesome with the neoprene mat and the gold coins. I first thing I said when I saw the coins in the game was, I got to figure out how to buy these because they were awesome. But the minis just were amazing. The monsters are all unique sculpts. Yep. They're very well detailed, and they came. You got them with whatever it is,
it's a wash
with a wash on them, so they look great. I liked it.
Yep. And then there's actually a ton of replayability because you have all these monsters, right? We did one of, I think there's 10 or 11 legendary monsters.
Okay.
So we just did one of those. We didn't have Skellig.
And is it always? One question that I was talking to Lawrence about was, is it always competitive?
No.
There is a cooperative mode?
Yep.
Okay. Cool.
So I was getting to that.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine. So I haven't read the rules on it, but it's the Wild Hunt is a cooperative. So it's you and your team versus the Wild Hunt. very much akin to the Witcher 3 video game. I think they're beginning to get into it in the Witcher's Netflix series. So it's you kind of running around fighting which I think there's 4 different ones that you can fight, right, of the Wild Hunt.
Nice.
Captains. And then you also have, like, the Hounds are running around doing stuff, too, and it's a whole different, they have their own combat deck, they have their own, some other stuff that...
The reason why I brought it up was because, Lawrence was saying his deck was just at the point where he felt like he could beat the Cyclops, and of course yours, you felt like you were there too, and he's like, of course, then the game ends because I beat the Cyclops before your guys got the turn, and honestly, as the person who went first, there is a that's the thing too. Turn order matters. Like I started with less money, less cards in my hand, but you all didn't get equal turns, but you had just gotten your engine the way you wanted it. I feel like that's good. That's good scalability. Like that's what you want everyone to feel like they had a shot. But yeah, like he was like, yeah, I'd love to play the cooperative version because if I do this good a job, then we should have success cooperatively too. And so I'd be interested to play that sometime.
Yeah, and there is actually a solo mode too.
Oh, nice.
I haven't looked at that too much either. What I think the problem with that is it's more of a high score sort of situation where I beat this monster in this amount of time, I get a score.
Okay.
Right? So that's your replayability is still there fighting other monsters and all that stuff, but it's I'm just trying to beat my latest score.
I think I would do that only if I wanted to play different heroes and try and figure out like different card combos that work. So then I could know what should I be looking for this character. Like I mentioned, like not knowing initially what I should buy for my character, and I think I bought poorly the first 2 cards. But by the third one, I'm like, okay, now I know what I need to buy. I think that's what I would do that for. I'd play that solo mode just so that I could say, okay, I had Rangar. Anyway, I had him, and these are the cards that I should buy to get a really efficient deck and see how it plays out. That's probably what I would do. But the score wouldn't interest me as much as just learning how to play each character and say, oh, you should go for these, and give that advice in a cooperative game.
Yeah, and then adding to that replayability, there are 6 Witchers and 5 Mages.
Yep.
So that you can go with to kind of just try different stuff.
Yeah.
When they all have unique abilities, which is interesting.
Yeah, I picked mine because he looked cool, and I believe I remembered him from the movies. Is this set like?
No,
it's not set in the same time frame.
No, like the Witchers, are just tied to their schools. So you have the School of the Wolf, School of the Bear, all that, School of the Cat, Viper. So it's just that.
Got it.
The Mages, though, because of their thematically longer lifespan, you'll notice some of them. So, like, one of the mages is Philippia?
Okay.
Philippia? So she's actually in the Witcher Netflix series.
Oh, cool.
Because they have a longer lifespan. So it's set before. That's why it's called the Old World.
Okay. So this essentially time period is before all of the stuff that we would watch on the TV show.
Yeah.
And then where does it fit in with the video games? Do you know?
I'm not sure. The only real Witcher video game I've played is 3. The one person is Ciri is in this. You can play as Ciri because of her elder blood, and she has a little bit of the time traveling abilities, sort of from the books. And
nice.
But her ability is really interesting because it's once a fight, you can basically say a card has a combo extension of whatever color you want.
Oh, nice.
So I was fighting with her the last time I was playing, and I was getting 12, 14 damage, 17 damage in one combo because I had enough cards that had the extensions that I was able to stick them all together.
Nice. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So as a fan of the the books and the video game and the show, like again, is this like a permanent game for you because it scratches that Witcher itch? You think so?
I do. I really enjoy the game.
Yeah.
The only issue, with one of these type of games is getting on the table with the right amount of people and the right amount of time. Right.
I mean, how you guys and this group plays though. I mean, it's usually like we're getting together. How many people are showing up and we're playing Witcher? Like it's usually the commitment, right? It's like this is the game we're going to play. So who wants to sit down and play for that long a time is what you guys agree to beforehand. So that's kind of cool. But like you said, yeah, the setup. I think it took you a good 10, 20 minutes to set up, and then for new players like Lawrence and I, it was a good 20 minutes of explanation before we actually got going. But again, once you start playing the game, it's not that hard.
No, lots of iconography.
Yeah.
Once you kind of get used to that helps.
Yeah, but it's not as bad as the other games that I played with with iconography. So I'm not going to name any names. So, well, cool.
So this is Derek and Ben with T.C.A.T Gaming, and thank you for listening.
All right.
I think it's just that button.
Sean, how do you turn it off now? You're going to have to edit.
I think it's just this one.
This one? Up this way?